guys, it's Quana back again with another review. Hope you guys are doing awesome. All right, so I'm going to be talking about episode 2 of The Fall of the House of Usher. This is a new series brought to us by Mike Flannagan, and it's adapted from the works of Edgar Allan Poe. It is currently streaming on Netflix. It is one of my most intriguing, I feel like one of the most intriguing shows that I've watched in the last month or so, with the exception of probably Gen V, and just because I grew up as an Edgar Allan Poe nerd, so I'm loving seeing all of the Easter eggs and all of the connections in the series, the way in which he was inspired by the works of Poe and adapted it. I'm going to call it an interpolation of those works, because they're not really literally transformed into this or literally adapted. It's very much loosely adapted. But I will say that this episode and the characters in this episode are the ones that fit the story probably the most. It's probably one of the most literal translations of the works that I've seen so far in the series, and I'm somewhere around episode 5 or 6, so I will be covering every single episode. I'm going to try and release recaps on 1 or 2 episodes every couple of days, so that you can come back and you can binge watch all of these episodes together, or you can watch them 1 or 2 at a time. So I'll try to at least release 2 at a time. But if you haven't had an opportunity to do so already, please do me a favor and click that subscribe button down below. Ring the bell for the notifications. Click the bell for notifications so that you can find out when I'm releasing a new recap. If you're like me and it's spooky season and you're looking for something that's intriguing and mysterious and a great anthology, this is really it. I have been watching American Horror Story. I might come back and cover that a little bit later. It's not been grabbing my attention as much as prior seasons, but this has got me locked in. So if you haven't watched my episode 1 recap, go back and watch that. I'm gonna link it right here below and also down in the description so that you can watch that first and then come into this one, because this is going to probably be a little bit shorter because I spent a lot of time laying the groundwork for the series as a whole and for that episode, and I feel like this one will go a little shorter than that. But make sure you've also watched episode 2, because I am going to be spoiling it. If you couldn't tell by my exuberant face, I am enjoying this series. That's all the review that you need. Now let's just get into the nitty-gritty of it, okay? All right, so this episode is entitled The Masque of the Red Death. And if you've never read The Masque of the Red Death, it is all about this guy named Prince Prospero, who is having this huge party, having all these parties full of debauchery, and like basically people are dying at the party, and so somehow he invites this party. He has like 1,000 guests who come to this party, and this cloaked individual shows up to the party and no one can figure out who they are, and at the end of it all, everyone is dead. That's basically it. And this episode is a very, very like intentional interpretation and literal interpretation of that. So it really starts off the episode with the young Dupin, which the older version is played by Carl Lumby, and we see a young version of him back in the 70s taking pictures of all these empty graves. So if you remember in the first episode, Roderick and Madeline's mom broke out of her grave, so it's very similar. But we find out that there are 5 empty graves that he's recently found, and all of them are connected to some weird drug trials that are going on, i.e. Fortunato Pharmaceuticals. So we see kind of that he's been chasing Usher's company for years and years and years, and it's all centered around this drug called ligodone, which is kind of a, what's it called, a portmanteau of lidocaine, I think, and oxycodone. So it kind of has, from how he describes it, it's very similar to those two things. Like it numbs pain, which would be like the lidocaine part, but and it like has effects on like your heart, but it's kind of like the attachment to like oxycodone and heroin and things like that in our world, and it's kind of like a merger of the two. And he's like, I don't see anything wrong with it. My new wife, like, yeah, she's like on, like, you don't even know how many pills she's on a day. She used to be a heroin addict. She's on so much of this drug. Like, she's fine. She's still living. You can't blame me for people abusing the drug. So it's very similar to what's going on with like the meth crisis and the oxycodone crisis and just like those drugs going on. So this episode is centered around his youngest son, who is the first to die, Prospero, but they also call him Perry. The actor who plays him was in one of Mike Flannagan's other shows, Midnight Masque. Literally everyone in this show is pulled from a Mike Flannagan project in some way, shape, or form, it feels like. I kind of like that. I love when obviously people have a good connection, they work well with the director, and they're pulled into other projects. I think that speaks very highly, at least for the relationship that the directors are creating with those particular actors, because there's this sense of like natural chemistry and camaraderie that feels like it's existed because they've worked together before. He is young, hot-headed, using drugs, just wild, crazy partier, and he's supposed to be shadowing his older brother, but he just wants to party. He just wants to do drugs. He wants to have sex. He wants to have fun, a good time. And he gets to the job and he's like cutting up, and Pim is ready to like take him out. Like, you're opening your mouth, the feds are here, they're trying to find out information about our company, and here you are running your mouth big time. No, what are you doing? And he sees this warehouse or this factory that they're supposed to have demoed because it was like a whole, earth crisis and they didn't get rid of the company. And so he sees it and he's like, oh, this would be a bomb spot to have a big rave, sex, drugs, party, and rock and roll. Yes, we're going to do that. So he and his friends get together and they decide that they're going to throw it there. But while they're scoping out the place, there's this lady that's like randomly on top of the building. I'm pretty sure she's a ghost because no one else sees her, and she's wearing a red cloak. Then we find out everybody's dirt in this episode. Like, this is the sex and excess episode, pretty much. Everybody's doing dirt. Vic is experimenting on monkeys and killing them in an attempt to make some kind of like mesh heart device work. Then Perry goes to Napoleon to get some drug connections for the party. So we basically find out that not only is Napoleon cheating on his boyfriend, but he also does drugs and is able to deal drugs to his younger brother. And we find out that like Tamerlane has some weird thing going on with her husband where they hire prostitutes to come and pretend to be her so that he can have a romantic dinner, so she doesn't have to engage with him romantically, but she's also getting off on it. Very, very weird. Then Camille, who is so busy, she doesn't have time, and she has some weird fixation on her family, I feel like, but she doesn't have time for love life, so she gets her assistants to go to bed with her. And again, really weird because they're dressed like school kids. Really, really weird. Not here to kink shame, but really, really weird. I really don't know what's going on with Frederick. He seems normal. Frederick is the only one so far who seems kind of normal, okay? Then, so Perry goes to scope out the place, finds out that there's no water, which is a real bummer because he wants to make it rain, and when it rains, that's when the orgy is going to start. And of course, cue the Cardi B WAP reference in the episode. But then we flash back to young Roderick trying to get Lidocaine picked up at Fortunato. He is not even like a part of the company yet, which I just wrongly assumed that he immediately, like, they found out that was their dad and then they took over the company. But no, he is like working at the company, but he's like working in the mailroom or like just as a lower level, grunt, and he does not have any pull in the company. He actually gets to see where his mom's desk was for the first time, and it appears that like they're trying to get connects at the company, maybe because they're trying to get some kind of revenge for their mom, but we don't really know what that is yet. And we meet his beautiful wife, Frederick, and Tamerlane's mother, Annabelle Lee, like the poem Annabelle Lee. And whenever I think of the poem now, I think of that scene from Holes with Kissing Kate Barlow and Sam, where they're reading the poem for Annabelle Lee. The cutest scene in Holes. But I digress. We're not here to talk about Holes. We're here to talk about Fall of the House of Usher. Perry's ghost randomly shows up while Roderick is retelling the story, and he shows up in front of Roderick looking like a burnt up Freddy Krueger without the sweater. So we already kind of get foreshadowing for something bad happened to my boy Perry, his cute little adorable self. But then randomly we get Frederick's daughter, who's over visiting her grandpa, goes to visit her grandpa. Grandpa is too busy getting it on with the new grandmama in the office, so she takes herself over to her auntie's office, where we see that Madeline is doing like computer and technology stuff, and she's trying to make an AI version of Lenore to help like continue the legacy. Like, she has her write in a journal, and she's going to take that and help the algorithm learn about her. This all sounds freakishly familiar, and I'm just like, does Netflix realize the call coming from inside the house? Like, pay your people, but also stop trying to get AI to like be actors. We don't want AI to be taking the place of human beings, which, hello, there's like a whole conversation about that when Roderick is in the past talking with his wife and his sister. They have a whole conversation about that. So like, yes, let's stop having AI try to take over human beings completely, because human beings create art, and technology, it can only create a facsimile of art. It's not going to be real. It's not going to be authentic, but I digress. It's time for the party, and it's a veritable who's who of like big time names at this party, and they had to cough up some big dollars to go to this party, like $10,000 or $20,000. You will never find a party that I want to go to so bad that I'm willing to pay that much for it. Even my Beyonce tickets, I was not willing to go above $200. I was not, okay, because no, I like my money in my pocket. So they're having a good time at the party, but suddenly this woman, this blonde in a red cloak, shows up and is perusing the party. Oh, pause, because I completely forgot to mention that when Perry went over to his brother's house to drop off some papers, he ran into his beautiful wife and was like inviting her to the party, which I guess she needs to live a little bit. So she starts to think about, do I want to come to this party? It's on some weird, you trying to sleep with your husband's baby brother kind of stuff. It's a little freaky right there. Like, she's trying to, sow her oats or something like that. I was not cool with that, but she's a beautiful woman. And so they're at the party, and he's telling her to go have a good time, and then he spots the lady in the red cloak, and so he starts to follow her, and eventually she has this like death mask, a skeleton mask on, and we see that it is none other but our good girl Carla, aka Verna. How is she blonde and in 2023 looking so young and good when we definitely saw her New Year's Eve 1979, about to be 1980? Something strange is going on with our good girl. And she starts to talk to Perry and talks about like how beautiful he is and how all this cool stuff, but how he has the ability to stop what he's about to do. And he's looking at her kind of sus, like, well, I don't want to stop it. I want to have a good time. And she's like, well, you can keep going if you want to, but you're going to regret it. Like, the feeling you're feeling right now, the high you feel when you're just about to do something amazing, like once you've done it, then it's kind of a letdown. But when you're getting ready for it, right before it's about to happen, that's like the best you'll feel. So you might as well go ahead and just stop now. Which I kind of get what she's talking about, because it's kind of like how I felt when I went to the Renaissance concert. Like, I was so excited, got dressed and everything right before, and then during the concert, it's wonderful. But then afterward, it was just like, oh my gosh, it's over. Now how do I get back to life? He doesn't stop it. She leaves and then starts whispering to everybody, and it's really, really weird because people start dipping, and I'm looking at Frederick's wife like, girl, she said, go. The side of her that was black did not naturally kick in, because she did not leave. Instead, she walks to the side and doesn't think she's leaving. She's not leaving out the door that's closest to her. Well, Perry's little friend switches on the switch for the water to start raining down, and this is supposed to kickstart the orgy. And everybody is hunching on each other and dancing, but all of a sudden everybody starts screaming and smoke starts pulling off people's skin, because it is raining down toxic acid, chemicals, something, and they are literally melting. It reminded me of the scene from Gremlins 2. In Gremlins 2, when they turn the sun on and the gremlins start melting and everything, that's what it reminded me of. Oh my gosh, it was just the nastiest thing. Like, they start melting and it's just like a puddle of ooze. That's what it reminded. Like, it is literally human ooze. It's their bones melted. If you have a weak stomach and you did not watch the episode already and you did not leave when I said, hey, there are spoilers in this episode, this would be your cue to perhaps not watch it, because it was nasty. Just skip that scene. As soon as they go to turn on the water, just hit the little 30-second skip button a couple of times and you'll be good to go. You don't need to see that. But then suddenly Verna pops back up and she is obviously not melted, and she goes to Perry's melted, burnt body and puts the mask on him and leaves. That's basically how the episode ends. So just like in the Masque of the Red Death story, everyone dies in agony, like very quickly and suddenly and mysteriously, and we don't know why, but obviously whatever was in them barrels on the top of the roof, it was not clean water. Which, hello, they literally were just talking about how dangerous whatever the chemicals were at those factories were anyway, so why would you not think about that? I don't know. But, like, so again, this was the most literal of the episodes in my opinion, in terms of like the story and how the story exactly happens, because Perry's character dies in the Masque of the Red Death. Prince Prospero, and he is the prince, he's the youngest, and it happens almost exactly like how it happens in that story. This was a good episode. I was low-key sad when Perry died, but he did get what was coming to him, because he had the opportunity and he was forewarned that he could stop before things went too far, and he did not stop. And what made it worse was he was planning to use footage to blackmail the famous people who were at the party. So not only did he get the $1 million worth of money from everybody at that party, like to start the party, to have the party, but then he was literally about to blackmail everybody. So he definitely got what he deserved, but all them people did not deserve to die like that. That was a bad way to go. It was on some next level Walking Dead type mess, and I'm here for that. I'm here for it. I'm here for what this show is going to cook up next. So that is my recap of episode 2 from Fall of the House of Usher, entitled Masque of the Red Death. What a great interpretation of that particular short story. What a great way to bring it into 2023. It really felt like how the story itself feels. It's a cautionary tale of excess, a cautionary tale of like giving into one's worst impulses, and this is exactly what this was, because time and time again Perry could have stopped and he didn't stop. And so this is like a cautionary tale, and I love this episode. This was one of my favorite episodes so far. Let me know down below in the comments if there were Easter eggs or things that I forgot to mention, because I'm sure I forgot some stuff, because it's late and it's time to go to bed. But I will see you guys in episode 3. So I'll see you guys. Don't forget, if you haven't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button, share this video out with other people who you know love this series, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Toodles!